we have a few more examples of real companies using generative AI to achieve real productivity gains. So a few things have come out where some people have collected a couple interesting examples I think are important to relate. So first, there was a weekly tech newsletter from Tane Jaipuria called Tane's Newsletter, which we'll link to in the show notes. And they list out a number of compelling recent AI case studies. So I'm just going to go through these really quick because I know that we have tracked a few of these individually, but I think hearing all these together is really compelling. So first, Klarna, which is a payment company, they have an AI assistant that replaced 700 employees in terms of reducing the work of 700 employees, reducing resolution times on customer tickets from 11 minutes to 2 minutes while maintaining customer satisfaction. We'll talk about this one again in a second, but Salesforce's Agent Force platform is showing double-digit increases in customer satisfaction and case resolution rates. Microsoft expects to save hundreds of millions annually on call centers from adopting generative AI. Amazon's Q Assistant saved what they are terming 4,500 developer years worth of work. That is not a typo. And $260 million in costs for a recent code migration task. eBay has an AI-assisted selling flow that led to a 20-point increase in customer satisfaction. Rocket Mortgage has an AI assistant that transcribes calls and completes mortgage applications. It literally saves bankers from inputting millions of data fields weekly. And a final example they mentioned in the newsletter, Walmart used generative AI to improve over 850 million pieces of data in its product catalog. Now, on top of this, the consulting firm BCG also released some research around how Gen AI can significantly expand worker capabilities. So they teamed up with Boston University and OpenAI's Economic Impacts Research team to see how Gen AI is actually impacting work performance. So some of the notable things they found here is that AI leads to immediate, what they call aptitude expansion. So basically, in their tests, workers with no prior coding experience, to our previous point, achieved basically an 84% score on a benchmark that data scientists were using for a coding task. So they got like 84% of the way there with no experience by pair programming with Gen AI. Gen AI augmented participants in this work performed 49 percentage points better on those benchmarks than people without AI. They also found Gen AI served as a valuable brainstorming tool for complex tasks. And they kind of summed this up really nicely with this quote. They said, quote, "A new type of knowledge worker is entering the global talent pool. This employee, augmented with generative AI, can write code faster, create personalized marketing content with a single prompt, and summarize hundreds of documents in seconds." So, Paul, I confess, like, this is like a near and dear topic to me because, like, I feel like I get heat online sometimes for people being like super skeptical that you can do anything to achieve real world results with generative AI, which I get. There's a lot of hype out there. I'm sure I contribute to it at times. It can't do everything and it has limitations, but like the benefits of this technology have been so immediately obvious in our own work that I'm just like I have a hard time understanding the skepticism. Like, are you seeing that too? Is that how you look at stuff like this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw Ethan Mollick tweeted this morning that,
Mm,
what he's seeing is um, the companies where the C-suite or the executives themselves are active participants in experimentation with
hmm
LLMs are the ones that are racing ahead. The companies where the C-suite isn't using or has just tried it and didn't see what the value was,
Yeah.
are the ones that are lagging behind. And I think that's insanely true. Like I really don't understand how, if you invest the time in experimenting with these models, you don't connect the dots of the value you could be creating. And these examples that Tanja gave, who by the way is a partner at Wing Ventures, a VC firm that invests in early stage AI companies, um, he's pulling excerpts from earnings calls.
Right.
So and it's interesting from an AI perspective. I wasn't following this guy. It surfaced in my For You feed on Twitter. Like, that was how I came across it, and then you're like, "Ah, like, whatever, it's just another Twitter thread." Then I just did a little digging, and I was like, "No, this guy's got some, like, really valuable stuff in his feed." Like, he posts really good stuff, and it's, like, research based. It's coming from good sources. So that was why I kinda flagged it for us to talk about. And then for you and I, Mike, like, you'll remember this, like, about 4 or 5 years ago, I think it was either Mike or Tracy on our team, I said, "We need to build a database of brands actually using AI." Because at
Mhm.
that time, it was really hard to find companies that were getting value from AI. And so we went out and searched, and we created it was just a Google sheet where we were tracking stories of brands that had actually had success with AI. And so that was when I saw this tweet, I was like, "Man, times have changed." Like, it
Right.
it's still challenging sometimes to find, like, great case studies because I think a lot of people who are having success just aren't talking about it intentionally, like,
Yeah.
from a competitive standpoint. But I thought these are all really practical examples, and the thing I liked is in a lot of ways, it's innovation or expansion of capabilities over replacement of human tasks.
Right.
And so doing things like the 850 million, the product example one for Walmart, you just wouldn't do that. Like, you wouldn't hire humans to do what they did. It just wouldn't happen otherwise. And so there's this balance between automating tasks that already exist, the 20 things I do for my job, the 50 things we do for these 5 campaigns, like the known things. And then there's looking at your work, your company, and saying, what are all the things we're not doing that AI now enables? And that's
Right.
why I love this, these examples that he pulled out from these earnings reports. Is it's just really practical stuff that's showing the potential for AI to create value in all these new ways. And the other thing I'll say is I think a lot of times people get caught up in these, like, finding 10, 20% productivity increases or efficiency gains.
Mm.
And then you look at examples like this and you realize when you pair AI, like the right AI tools with the right use cases, we are talking about like 50, 70,
Mm.
90% gains in some cases. And I think that's where some people get caught up and think it's hype. It's not. Like, if you apply this to the right thing, like, just think about our problems GPT model.
Right.
That is, honest to God, a thing that would take dozens of hours that you can do in 3 minutes. Like, get an initial run, initial draft in 3 minutes. We are talking about hundreds of percentage of increases in productivity gains. So it's yeah, I think people just they get overwhelmed by the hype if they're not experimenting themselves. When you're in this and you're finding that one use case you can get excited about, or you've seen it applied to something you were doing and you realize the potential of it,
Mm.
then it just becomes this game of looking at everything and matching AI with the things that are going to create the greatest value for you. And that's not hype. That's just a practical approach to applying AI to your business. And I think there's a massive opportunity still for professionals and business leaders and
Mm.
companies that do this in a strategic way, that take the use case model and the problem based model, that you're running these things simultaneously. You're looking at both ways to be more innovative and solve problems in a smarter way, and you're being more efficient and productive in your tasks. Like, the companies that do both of those things and build a roadmap for how to do it well over the next 1 to 2 years, they're just going to leap ahead of their peer
Mm.
groups.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to kind of consider like, oh, okay, well, where do all these perspectives come from? And I also wonder too, we've talked about this a bit, how much of the skepticism is people approaching this like traditional software, where they try one prompt, it didn't work. They tried it a year ago on a much inferior model. It didn't do exactly what they wanted or what they said it could do. And that's kind of really where they stopped. Like, it's, well, okay, let's look at the prompt. Let's look at the model. Did you talk with it, coerce it into doing what
Right.
you wanted? Did you give it examples? I mean, I've literally had night and day different results with pretty basic tasks by changing up that approach. So just validates
And
everything you
I
just
think for a
said.
lot of companies, like a lot of business users, their only experience is Copilot. And the
Yeah.
reality is,
Yeah.
from everything we've seen, like Copilot within, Microsoft, it's just not at the level of using a Claude or a ChatGPT
Hmm.
outside of that environment.
Yeah.
And your common use cases there are like rewrite my email or write this draft or create this presentation. And I get how you could have an underwhelming experience if that's all you've ever done with a large language model is test Copilot or Gemini within Google Workspace. Like it can
Mhm.
be underwhelming, but get outside of those domains and really push ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini outside of the productivity platforms that you use at work every day, and I think you'll find a totally different experience.